Syndergaard or whatnot. But yeah,
He pitched
it
well.
really. What was that?
I thought he pitched well. Did I miss something else that happened?
It was some weird video that I saw. I gotta go back in there. Maybe he pitched well or not. It was something about the umpires coming to the mound or whatever. But anyways, yeah, I don't really know.
Uh,
Julio Urias, man, is the only guy that I would be willing to give a long-term deal. Yeah, he pitched 5 shutout innings. There was some weird video that I saw. I don't really know what was going on there, but
I said he
Julio
got hit,
Urias.
but had to leave.
Okay, got it. Um, yeah, Julio Urias really is the only guy in the 2024 starting pitching, I guess, class or 2023 offseason class, free agent class that is, that I would give that I would consider, I should say, giving a long-term deal for. I don't believe in Blake Snell. I don't believe in Aaron Nola long term. Julio Urias is obviously having a down year, but I think his sample size is a little bit better than what the other guys have to offer. Obviously, Aaron Nola has had success, but I'm not too enamored with Aaron Nola in the slightest. I know, Nelson, you agree. But it is going to be Yamamoto is going to be the highlight of the free agent class, at least in terms of the Mets talk. And then we'll see what Shohei decides to do. Senga's going to be here. Quintana, barring any unforeseen trades, Quintana is going to be here. And we'll see. Like I said, whether Justin Verlander is here or not, the Mets can make a run at the starting rotation and they can build a solid World Series contending rotation with Justin Verlander or not, and that is via trade. We'll see what happens with Ronnie Mauricio, and that's just what it is. But yeah, the trade
Yeah,
deadline is in full force. I have notifications up. Um, I
yeah. I need
have
to. I need to get all my um, notifications like updated to start coming to me. I saw Kenny. I got Kenny in the chat. What up, Kenny? Just want to take the moment, right, to whoever's watching. I know we're filling in for Rob on his trade deadline special, trying to get him some sleep. Um, if you haven't seen us before, my name is Nelson. I go by Amish Country Mets fan. I have a YouTube page as well. I do tons of Mets content. If you are watching and could give us, me and Chris both, he does his page is CPNY Sports here on YouTube as well. Mine's is at Amish Country Mets fan. If you could at some point, if you're on Rob's channel, hop on over to ours if you haven't already, and give us a subscription, like, comment, all that good stuff. We greatly appreciate it. We do the show, the Round Table podcast with Rob on Mondays and Hayden as well. So you'll see us if you're into the Rob stuff. Usually you'll see us there, and yeah, glad to help him out. He's doing this crazy special. I'm usually a night owl anyway. I think Chris is as well. So we're trying to help him out a little bit. I might jump on tomorrow as well. And yeah, go ahead, Chris, if you want to shout out. I mean, I tried to shout out your stuff, but anything else you want to say?
Yeah, no, I mean my YouTube ad is at CPNY Sports. I'd appreciate a subscribe as well. Doing Mets content, obviously with Nelson, Interstate Mets Report, Tuesdays and Fridays. I'm not going to turn this into a whole shout outing of us. This is Rob stuff and we're helping him out. But yeah, definitely we do some great stuff as well. We talk about the Mets every Tuesdays and Fridays. If you're in for Mets content, subscribe to my channel. But yeah, we'll see. I just subscribed to or I just followed. I've been following John Heyman, but I turned on his notifications as well. So I'm in on all the notifications for the big reporters of MLB. I'll be getting that. I'll be refreshing my feed here. We'll see what happens. It is past 1 a.m.
Yeah,
Obviously,
I was gonna say, if we're being
um,
honest, most of the East Coast guys are probably winding down. They got to get some sleep as well. I know it's a 24/7 job, but I figure at some point Billy Epler needs to get some sleep, and all the other GMs. The West Coast guys maybe up for a little longer, and maybe you could see a West Coast team doing a late night deal, but for the most part, we're probably not going to see anything tonight.
Yeah.
Things will definitely pick up tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. We'll start seeing some deals flying. Hopefully, anyway. I hope it's not a boring trade deadline. I know we've had a lot of stuff happen already, but it's always fun to have the deals on the actual day and the deals that come in like the last hour or two. So yeah, it'll be fun to see if we get some crazy movement or that surprise move that nobody sees coming. Those are always fun to talk about. That out of left field move that you're like, holy crap, I didn't expect that team to do trade for so and so. Or so we'll see what
No,
happens.
and yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Like I said, my at on YouTube is at CPNY Sports. All across the board, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube at CPNY Sports. Go ahead and subscribe. But yeah, we'll see. The teams like the White Sox or the Cardinals are the prime teams to be looking out for in terms of a blockbuster. Two teams that are definitely underperforming in terms of what we're seeing right now in their record and what versus what they have on paper. Obviously, the Cardinals have like Goldschmidt and Arenado, who are guys that will be there for the long term, but that the Cardinals have not ruled out in terms of making a blockbuster deal. For this trade deadline. I think it's pretty much smoke and it's not going to happen, but it's interesting to think about in the very least at some point. But we'll see what happens to the rest of the trade deadline. We know who the teams are that are going to be gunning for a championship contender. The one it's not really surprising, but the Angels being buyers is really surprising to me. It's not surprising because the owner is who he is. He's a little bit stubborn, but they have made the moves to sort of make a run at the playoffs at
Yeah,
at
they
a
made a lot of
championship.
moves.
They have made a lot of moves, and credit to them for doing so, but it's just like a head scratcher because it's like Shohei Ohtani's time in LA, as an Angel is going to be in question in the offseason. And they got a couple guys signed to long-term deals. Um, Rendon, Trout, who guys who are injury ridden. It's interesting what they're doing over there in LA. So we'll see what
Yeah,
happens. But yeah, I think for the Mets, as we talk about the Mets and the Mets perspective of the trade deadline, which all these good listeners over here are pretty much tuning in for Mets content. Um, Tommy Pham is probably going to be the next one to go, to be honest with you. So we'll see what the trade market value is for Tommy Pham. I don't think Justin Verlander deal gets done until maybe like late tomorrow or today, I should say. It's already 1:20. So today I should say. So we'll see. But I think Tommy Pham is a guy that's 100% going to be sold before tomorrow's deadline.
yeah. If you traded Canna, you're definitely trading Fam, because Canna you technically could have kept around next year. Fam is, I mean, you can re-sign him, but he's not already signed. Somebody asked if the Padres were buying or selling. I honestly don't know. They've kind of been back and forth on that. I know they're like within 4.5 games now of the wild card. They've been playing a lot better lately, so who knows? They might try to buy something at this point. Um, AJ Preller's usually very aggressive, so if he's, I wouldn't be shocked to see him go all in. I even saw a report that they were interested in Verlander. Um, Whether or not that's just smoke, who knows? But he likes to involve himself in the big names, so it's a possibility. The Padres have a decent system as well. Whether they not they want to pay that kind of money, I don't know. Their payroll's pretty high as well. Um, so maybe they sneak in last minute for JB. They panic and they decide we're going for it and we want a guy like Verlander. Who knows? But yeah, I think Tommy Pham's definitely the next piece. Where he goes, who knows? I'm taking the best deal, whoever it's from. I don't really care who it's from. I just would rather not. Of all the teams that I've heard connected, I don't want it to be the Yankees. I think the Yankees have a lot of overrated prospects. I don't believe in their prospects. Um, yeah, I'm not a fan of their system at all. Like, I'm sorry, call me a hater if you want. I don't think many Mets fans in here would, but if there's a somebody, a Yankee sympathizer out there among us, then call me a hater all you want. But I just don't have any desire to see us make that deal with them, just because I don't believe in that system at all.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And we'll see what happens with that. But shout out Michael Lamb. He says, "Hey guys," and we got a comment saying, "Just got off of work. Where's Rob?" Rob is asleep,
Rob
as Michael
retired. We have
said.
taken over his channel. No, I'm
Yeah,
just
we've
kidding.
taken over. We're helping Rob out. He's got the live stream deadline special here. We are taking over for a couple hours, giving him some much needed rest. He's obviously been doing a great job covering the deadline, not only from the Mets perspective, but just all in all. So I don't think that we see anything too spectacular here in the late hours of the East Coast time, but we'll see. Maybe we can break some breaking news here on the stream. So appreciate
Would be
everybody.
nice if there was something, if we stayed up and we actually got a little something.
I'd love that. I would love that. I mean, I'm sure the GMs are working hard, but I just don't see it happening. So we'll see.
I got
Um,
ESPN on, hoping to see something scroll like a breaking news thing or something, but
yeah,
nothing.
exactly. Exactly. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, but we can talk about the Mets prospects that we got in return in the meantime. I'm sure that a lot of people in here are wondering about the Marco Vargases of the world, the Ronald Hernandezes, the Luis Angel Acuñas, and how they fit into the overall Mets pipeline. So we can talk about that as well to fill some of the time. But if the Mets don't make any moves today, will y'all be disappointed? I won't say I'll be disappointed. I'll only be disappointed with the fam move. If they don't move fam, I will be disappointed. Rayleigh is a guy who I want to keep, so I will not be disappointed if he's on the team. Verlander is a fringe guy who I really think that the Mets could use in 2024, so I will not be disappointed if they don't move fam. Ottavino, I think they should take any and all calls on Ottavino. But Omar Narvaez is a guy, like, if someone needs a backup catcher, send them away. Omar Narvaez, like, probably does not need to be here. But other than that, I mean, no, I won't be disappointed at all. I think the Mets, what the front office has done so far this trade deadline and the prospects that they've acquired have done their due diligence with the selling process. And they've done a good job with it. So that's my opinion on what we've got in return. We can talk about the specific prospects in general, Nelson, if you want to, but the Mets have, done a good job so far in terms of selling. They have another piece or two, I should say, to sell off. But in terms of the overall prospects that they've gotten in return so far, being Ronald Hernandez, Marco Vargas, the younger prospects, and then Luis Angel Acuna, dude, that's spectacular. That's a win for the Mets, especially with Scherzer. Obviously, everybody is enamored with Scherzer. He was a very good signing when they signed him. I performed lights out last season, did not show up in the big games. To get a prospect like Luis Angel Acuna from the Texas Rangers in exchange for Max Scherzer, given that contract and given the amount of millions that Steve Cohen like literally just ate up and paid for the Texas Rangers to acquire a top 50 prospect like Luis Angel Acuna, absolute win. So that's where I'm at with the Mets so far before we see any other moves.
Yeah, I just want to circle back to that comment of whether I'd be disappointed. I I'm right there with you. Uh, unless they didn't trade Fam, that's the only thing that would really kind of disappoint me. And even then, I don't think I'd be like crazy disappointed. I think we've done a pretty solid job with what we've got so far. Like you said, we got Vargas, Hernandez in that Robertson deal. Then we got Luis Angel Acuna, which is a stud prospect for Scherzer. That's my favorite deal so far, definitely. And then we got that pitcher um Turkana. I'm blanking on his name right now though.
Justin
Uh,
Jarvis. Justin Jarvis.
Justin Jarvis, JJ, double J's. Uh,
JJ.
so yeah, I like what we've done so far, and I hope we do get a few more pieces in here. But if it's not Verlander, that's fine with me. Like with you, if we deal him and we get a haul for him, great. But if we keep him, I'm also happy. Um, Fam, I think we could get something decent for. So I really would like to see him go somewhere. Um, just like I said, not the Yankees.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And obviously we are on the Morning Brew podcast talking about the Yankees as well. And that farm system is just an absolute joke, right? That farm system is not good. That team overall in the Bronx is just not they're in flux. They don't know whether they want to sell. They don't know whether they want to buy. They're 3.5 games out of a wild card. Obviously, their roster is old. They're not going to be winning a championship this season. And it's hilarious the approach that that front office and Cashman is taking right now. So my philosophy is, listen, if you're pissed at the Mets for not, living up to expectations in 2023, that's one thing, and I completely understand. It's a very valid thought and feeling, but at least the front office and our owner has enough awareness to cut the losses early so that we are able to get prospects in return and still compete for 2024 because Luis Angel Acuna is slotted into that, I think, number one prospect spot for the Mets, and he's going to be MLB ready next year. To be honest with you, like I know a lot of people are not expecting him to be a part of the opening day roster in 2024. I am personally, but whether it's not, on opening day or whether it's mid-April or early May, whatever that case may be, he's going to be up in 2024. And you just look at, across town what they're doing in the Bronx, it's a joke. It's an actual joke. And it's a slap in the face to their fans, to be honest with you. And that team is an old team on paper. They got Judge and they got Garrett Cole. I guess the Yankees fans think that Gleyber Torres is one of the only players that they can get value out of, and that's pretty sad. And you're looking at the Mets trading an old man and Scherzer, talking about an older gentleman and Justin Verlander and getting some compensation. Tommy Pham, who they only had on a 1-year deal, $6 million, going to get some good compensation out of him. Like the Mets are doing everything right. And they're doing everything right in spite of spending so much in the offseason to potentially put a winner out there that just failed. And it failed because the Mets roster on paper did not perform up to the back of their baseball card. And that's just what it was. There was no life. Maybe there's some issues in the clubhouse. We don't know. Hopefully, the front office is getting that shirt up. Hopefully, that'll be a non factor in 2024. We'll see what happens out of there. But on paper, what the Mets are doing right now, really, you have like, when's the last time that we've ever seen a contending team like the Mets on paper in the beginning of the season sell as aggressively as the Mets have been selling so far on the trade deadline and getting these MLB ready prospects? Well, I won't say MLB ready. Luis Angel Acuna is MLB ready, but these prospects in return for these guys who are expected to make the Mets World Series contenders. I haven't seen it. And guess what? Marco Vargas, yeah, he's in rookie ball, but he just went 3 for 5 in his first MLB debut in the Florida Complex League for the Mets. He just went 3 for 5. Ronald Hernandez went 1 for 1 with 3 walks. And rookie ball is rookie ball. I'll say that once and for all. But the Mets front office really needed to be confident in what they were getting back for David Robertson, who was probably the best reliever and the best closer, bar none, on the trade market. And to pull a deal that early for David Robertson speaks volumes as to what the front office thinks of Marco Vargas and Ronald Hernandez in a stacked and absolutely stacked Marlins farm system. everyone's talking about, oh, Marco Vargas was the Marlins 18th overall prospect. Ronald Hernandez was their 21st overall prospect. That don't mean nothing. That doesn't mean anything. Nothing. The only knock you can make on that trade is that these guys are going to be ready in 2026 or 2027, not 2024 or 2025. That's the only knock you can make out of it. So we'll see what happens to those guys. I think is a win-win. I think this whole trade deadline really is a win-win for the Mets. Obviously, the players we've talked about on the roundtable. If you guys have not tuned in at 8 p.m. Yesterday, obviously, with Rob, Hayden, Nelson, and I on the roundtable podcast, we talked about the deadline overall. The Mets are in the driver's seat. Mets fans, let's not get desperate. We're not going to get desperate. The front office isn't desperate, and we got Steve Cohen at the helm. I know times are a little shaky right now, and this is not what you guys want to hear, but we've been getting some proper returns for these guys at this trade deadline. So I'm not a Mets homer by any stretch of the imagination. Epler has his faults. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Epler has been the perfect GM for the New York Mets since he's gone at the helm. He's made his mistakes. The Trevor Gott deal, the Darren Ruff deal, all failures. Whether you want to point out that Tommy Pham being the only offensive upgrade this past offseason, these are all knocks against Billy Epler. 100% I understand. And I'm not Billy Epler's biggest super fan either, even with what he's done in this trade deadline. I get it because I don't think he's the mastermind behind a lot of the stuff that's been going on. But listen, I see the light at the end of the tunnel, Nelson. I don't know if you do as well, but I see the light. I see the light at the end of the 2023 season, the 2023 offseason being that light. And I think that the Mets are not due because obviously the last offseason was a fireworks show, but I think that it's going to be even a bigger fireworks show come the 2023 MLB offseason. So that's just what I think. And yeah, there's a lot of naysayers of Steve Cohen right now. And I can understand where they're coming from, but I'm not going to buy into all of that. With what I've seen in these moves, I'm not going to kill Steve Cohen and what he's doing. Because guess what? He's invested his money. He has not gotten the returns on his money so far. And he's reinvesting that money. He's not only eating the money on his debt investments, he's reinvesting that money to get better prospects in return. So I don't know where you stand on that, but that's quite frankly where I stand on.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to because this my overall viewpoint on this team goes back to when he first bought it. He bought it with the Wilpons having been in charge, having been broke, um, having left with him with no infrastructure whatsoever. Um, the scouting department was weak. The minor league complex was weak. We didn't have a pitching lab. We just opened ours up like a couple months ago when other teams have had them for years. The farm system was weak. He was left with nothing really that great. So he had to make a choice when he came in. What do I do? How do I get this team to where I want it? I want to be in his head. He wants to be the Dodgers East. Well, how do you get there? You don't get there by selling what little prospects you have. You didn't have many to begin with. What he did do, he went first right out of the gate. He went and got Lindor. Um, I know he's a polarizing guy. Some people don't like him. I love the dude. I think he's one of the best shortstops in the game. I think it was an excellent move. That made a statement. We're here. I'm here to play. Then, I mean, that first season didn't go great for the team, for Lindor, for everybody. Um, then he went all in. Max was on the table. Everybody was like, "Oh, Max will never go to the Mets." He made it happen. He threw $43 million out there, and if you want to argue he shouldn't have done it, Okay, but what was the alternative? He had to boost the rotation. He had to do something. Max was one of the only decent pitchers on the market. To me, it's a move he kind of had to make because the alternative was sell the fan base on just blowing everything up and going on a rebuild for years. I'm sorry, but the whole concept of you can't rebuild in New York is kind of true. Fans don't want to hear it. Even the ones that say they do, like, as soon as it starts to happen, they start to bitch about it. So it was a no-win situation in that he walked into. So what he decided to do was, I'm going to just throw money at the problem. God bless the guy, and hope it works. The first year or the second year, you could argue it kind of worked. We won 101 games. We were in a battle for the division all year. We made the playoffs. In the playoffs, we fell short. This year, it obviously blew up in his face. But what does he do? He doesn't say, you know what, screw this. I'm taking my ball and going home. I don't want to eat any more money. He's like, you know what, Billy? Go out there, trade these guys, eat as much money as you possibly can, and get me the best pieces you possibly can. And to me, that inspires confidence. Like, I will run through a wall for Steve Cohen. I'm sorry. Just because I don't know another owner that would do that. Most of these billionaire and they're billionaires, they are way too cheap. Listen, I live outside of Pittsburgh. The few Pirates fans that are left because they've all been alienated hate their owner. This guy is made of money and he refuses to invest in that baseball team. And I can't blame him. Like, and yeah, they have a lot of young pieces, but the sad part is at some point they're probably just gonna end up playing for another team because he's not gonna pay them. He paid Brian Reynolds, and that was because Reynolds gave him a team friendly deal because he likes Pittsburgh. And so when you look at guys like that, Cleveland's owner's cheap. Hell, Steinbrenner, Yankee fans hate the dude because he's not his father. He's not spending money like George would. He's afraid of going over the luxury tax. Like, if we had an owner like that, we'd be losing our minds. So I feel good about where we are. As weird as that is to say, obviously we wanted to win this year. But I'm not afraid of next year being a rebuild year, because I don't think Cohen is in the position that he wants to sit here and lose for another year. He's going to do whatever it takes to try and turn this into a winner. And he will throw boatloads of money at Shohei Ohtani. Whether Ohtani takes it and comes here, obviously we don't know. But I've 1000% believe that he's going to make a run at him, um, because he's proven he'll do anything. And and if he misses on Ohtani, then I'm sure Soto is going to be on his radar for the following year or as for a midseason deal. Like, he's not going to shy away from these big ticket guys. Hopefully, he's learned in that he should maybe shy away from these older guys. The older, maybe not throw $40 million at an aging starter, because it didn't work out so well. You could argue both times. Verlander's been a little better, but we'll see. Um, but yeah, I mean, I like the vision. I want them to get younger. That's what they're doing. Um, they got pitching prospects coming up that look to be somewhat decent. They obviously have a ton of position players in the system that look to be decent. So I feel good about next year, and that's where I'm at. I'm gonna try to catch up on some of these comments, seeing as Chris seems to be bouncing in and out a little bit. Uh, explosive diarrhea. I can't get over the name explosive diarrhea. We need Matt Allen to get healthy. Yeah, I kind of think Matt Allen is washed. I'm going to be honest. If we get something out of him, great. I just don't expect it at this point. Um, Max was a great signing. We had a 1 year window, but failed after that. Yeah, you could argue we should have went for it harder at the last deadline for sure. Um, Hector says, I'm trying to figure out what the Mets are doing, blowing up a rebuild, a revamp. I think it's a revamp for next year for sure. Um, Patrick Sinclair, I believe we stole Marco Vargas. Yeah, man, that was a great pickup for me. Um, Four putt, your window was last year, and that was beginning of the season. Uh, Beginning of the end after being eliminated. I don't know about that. Um, I wonder if Buck will be the manager. I don't think any of us really. I think Chris, I'm pretty sure you're on board that I think most of us think Buck is probably gone after the year. At least we hope. Um,
Listen, listen. He's gone. That's it.
yeah.
He's gone. It's happening. He's not going to be the manager of 2024, and if he is, then I'll eat my words. But he's gone. So whoever's watching, whether you like Buck Showalter or not, I don't think he's going to be the manager of the Mets in 2024. That's my opinion.
So this might be an old report. I mean, it says 2 hours ago. Guy by the name of Ari Alexander. I don't know how reliable he is on Verlander. Yes, the Astros are in on him. The Dodgers have been as well. Mets ask is expected to be high, on top of one of the top hitting prospects plus one of the top pitching prospects as part of the framework. Money to pay down the contract is a factor. So really nothing new in any of that report there. But yeah, so they're except that it seems like they want a hitter and a pitcher in this as a return for Verlander. So we'll see. I'm going to keep scrolling here and see if I can find any other little tidbits on the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback on that, I really don't think that um Buck Showalter is going to be here. Let's be honest. David Stearns is going to come in, potentially bring his own guy. That's something that we have to account for. I think the little honeymoon phase that Buck Showalter brought in 2022, whether it's his fault or not, and let's face it, it's not all his fault. In 2023, of this downfall of this team is not Buck Showalter's fault. But listen, he is the manager at the end of the day. He makes the lineups. And let's face it, the president of baseball operations, whether it's Stearns or somebody else, is not his guy. So it's not going to be Buck Showalter at the helm in 2024, from what I assume, and that is just my assumption. But we'll see. Um, what do we have here? Can we bring up this comment here? I don't know if we can. I think Rob has the reins on that one, but
Yeah,
Carlton Van
I
Noy.
haven't figured out how to pull up
Yeah, I don't know how
comments.
to figure that. Yeah. Because Rob really is the ultimate guy that has the helm of this podcast and this live. We're just here filling in. But shout out Carlton Van Noy in the comments. Appreciate you tuning in to Rob's stream, donating a little bit of money as well. I want to highlight your comment and we'll talk about it for a little bit. Nick Kroll with a very good move. Maul fits nicely. Yeah, and we saw the mall trade as well. And I want to bring up that mall trade. Let me bring that up real quick. It was the Cincinnati Reds who acquired lefty reliever Sam Maul. And Sam Maul was previously a part of the Oakland Athletics organization. The Cincinnati Reds we will see shortly how far the Cincinnati Reds will go. That team literally hit me with a 180 because I was just like, the Cincinnati Reds are not making any noise. All of a sudden, they're keeping, they're in it, they're in it. They bring up Ellie De La Cruz, and we know what he is in the MLB level. And it's just like, whoa, like these teams. I mean, the O's are a little bit of a different situation, but you talk about a team like the Reds. And you talk about a team like the Diamondbacks as well. Obviously, the Diamondbacks have to contend with the Dodgers, and the Reds have to contend with the Brewers. And it's not really a similar situation, but two teams who were not thought of anything special coming into this season. Obviously, the young talent in the pipeline was there, but definitely not for 2023. And you look at 2023, and it's like, whoa, these guys are literally playoff contenders. So, absolutely a great job anytime an MLB team that is a smaller market team like the Diamondbacks, like the Reds, are making a run for a playoff spot and are being competitive, doesn't matter how they do it. I am going to root for them. I'm rooting for the Baltimore Orioles. I will go on live right now and say that the Baltimore Orioles is the team that I'm rooting for going forward. But I like what the Cincinnati Reds are bringing to the table. I like the Diamondbacks, what they're bringing to the table, and I respect what they're doing right now. So shout out those teams and those organizations, especially if they're going to be buyers at the deadline with whatever they got. If they're buyers,
I'm a
then by all means, go for it. So
I'm a Wilmer Flores guy, so I'm rooting for the Giants. um, I always love my guy Wilmer. So that they're my like team that I'm backing now that the Mets are pretty much. I mean, I guess if you want to nitpick, we're only 6 games out, but let's be honest, we're not making any noise. Um, so yeah, the Giants are my team, and then I follow the Pirates actually very closely just because I live so close, and they're like the regional team that's on. They're obviously not in the hunt. Cleveland I follow pretty close too because I also get their games. Um, they seem to be. There was questions whether they'd be buyers or sellers. It looks like they're selling. Um, I don't know. That Central Division in the AL, well, in the NL and AL, but the AL especially, it kind of sucks. Um, the Twins, I think, are leading it, and it's the record isn't very good. Yeah, so it'd be interesting what happens there. So yeah, it's. I mean, we all. I think as fans, we are probably looking for something to kind of latch on to here at the end of the season. So it'll be fun to watch these teams. The Reds are very fun. The Reds, I love Ellie De La Cruz. They got a lot of other young, explosive players. They probably could use some more pitching as well. It's the name of the game is pitching, especially in the postseason. So it'll be interesting to see. That's kind of why I think you were hearing Verlander's name so much. Not, I don't think so much the Mets are want to shop him. I just think there's so many teams interested that you have to listen, just given the position that we're in. So like if one of these teams gives you an offer you can't refuse, that Godfather offer, then you take it. I think, but like you said, and we've said, and we've hammered home for a while, it's not something we have to do. So we're in the driver's seat. We'll see what happens. It'll be a fun however many hours are left at this point. I'm a little delusional here. We're almost at 2 a.m.
yeah, I think we got about 16 hours left, so we'll see. Honestly, I'm kind of like I don't even know if it's just like me just being me, but like I'm kind of like locked in right now. I don't know if it's just me just being on this live right now, but I'm kind of locked in. We'll see how late that goes or how long that goes. But I want to shout out Andre Manation. Hopefully I got the name right. But shout out Andre in the comments. He says, "Really? You think Buck is gone, Chris? Who is taking over?" Um I really think with potentially David Stearns, and I say potentially with the biggest grain of salt because we all know how the reports go and the signings of these front office managers or whatnot go. It's always a when the reports come in early, like the David Stearns to the Mets reports did come in. it's always a grain of salt you have to take it with because things can fall through the cracks, and we'll just see what happens with it. But Andre, to answer your point, I think 100%. I think Buck Showalter's gone. That's the first domino of my answer. But the second domino, who's replacing him? To be honest with you, I saw some reports saying that if David Stearns comes on board, Craig Counsell could come on board to be the Mets manager. And listen, Craig Counsell, solidified MLB player in his career, had a really solid career. Think he's done some good things with the Brewers. I think that could be a potential fit for manager. Some people I see here in the comments, um, Jorge Posada, I see from Patrick Sinclair here. I don't think that's viable. I think Carlos Beltran might be another name if you re-engage in discussions for him. Obviously, his managerial career kind of fell through the cracks with the Astros cheating scandal. He's a Mets special advisor right now. We'll see if he's open to being a manager. But everyone talks about Eric Chavez, who is also a viable option as well. But we'll see what happens with that. I think Craig Counsell right now is probably the leading prospect to be manager of the New York Mets in 2024 in a package deal with David Stearns, um, coming over as a free agent of president of baseball operations. But we'll see what happens in the managerial position. I just don't see Buck Showalter, that kind of manager, fitting in with the Mets in 2024, who are looking to get more youthful. I'm not saying because Buck Showalter is an older gentleman. I'm saying because Buck Showalter's managerial style is not in tune with playing the younger guys. And that's just how I feel. Whether Buck Showalter's making the lineups, this year or not, in his press conferences has been very evident to sort of dissuade me from believing that he believes in these younger guys that the Mets have to offer, especially when Alvarez and Beatty and Vientos were coming up, up to the major leagues this season. So we'll see what happens. I will not count on Buck Showalter being the manager in 2024. I'm not saying that the 2023 Mets failures fall on Buck Showalter solely, but I don't think he's going to be the manager in 2024. Nelson, what do you have to say on that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I say David Stearns comes in, I would think he'd want his own guy to be the manager. I could see him keeping Billy just because they're friends and he maybe doesn't want to shake everything up all at once. But I don't know. Buck, I could see leaving. I saw Victor Hernandez put he likes Ozzie Guillen. I like Ozzie too. I just think Ozzie has burned a lot of bridges with some past comments he's made, and fair or not, I think he kind of screwed himself out of maybe managing again, just some because of some of the comments he's made in the past. Um, but he's a fiery guy. He's a little old school for probably a lot of teams' likings. I know analytics plays a big factor in a lot of these hires nowadays. Um, it's one or the other. You either weigh analytics a lot or you go the crusty old veteran route, which I mean worked kind of for us last year. Dusty Baker won a World Series, so it can work. I mean, Bruce Bochy is an older guy, and he's been around forever, and he's one of the best managers there is. And he's doing it again in Texas. Finds a way to win, that guy always. So you can make an argument for the old vets, but I personally would like a younger guy, somebody more in tune with the changes in the game. Um, but that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I think Buck is, to me, he is worn his welcome. He's just not the guy. I don't know. I don't want to blame it all on him. Obviously, the players have a lot to do with it, but there does seem something to be off in that clubhouse. I don't know. I know Lindor. I love Lindor, and Lindor loves him, and his little girl loves him, and all that. But just because a couple guys on the team like you and whatever, that doesn't mean much. I saw that he was like had an emotional phone call with Canna after he got traded. It's like, okay, whatever. Like, I mean, good for you. It's just, I don't know. It's I just I don't know. I've never been a big Buck guy. I didn't like him necessarily that much last year either. Um, but he was winning, so it was hard to argue with what was going on. Uh, I don't know. My preference is for sure for him to be gone. Though.
Yeah, no, I mean, I, yeah, Buck Showalter may be a fan favorite just because of his pedigree. Um, in the MLB, he hasn't won a damn thing. Let's be honest, he hasn't won a damn thing at the MLB level in terms of manager, as a managerial position. The Baltimore Orioles in 2014 and beyond were failures. We talk about his Yankees days, etc. I just don't think he's the right guy to be a leader of the youth movement, and I think the front office does want to lean towards more of the youth movement. I think that this trade deadline really is an indicator of that, and I just don't think that the Mets, especially Steve Cohen, want to do Buck Showalter wrong by making him look bad and firing him mid deadline or whenever that may be. But I think that he really is going to be gone in one of the first moves that you see in the offseason. Um, we'll see what ultimately ends up happening. That's just my inkling, but we'll see. This is all just speculation.
I,
We see with David Stearns potentially coming on board, as the reports have shown. David
I
Stearns
did
is
see
a
a good
shell of a lot.
question from I think I can't remember. I think it was Andre. Maybe he said, "What if David Stern doesn't come? Uh, does Cohen go after Epstein? Stearns doesn't come. I don't know that Epstein. I think Epstein is. Um, I don't know. I don't know that he wants to do work in front offices anymore. But that is a good question. What if Stearns doesn't come? To me, I don't know. I know Steve has been very picky about who he hires for that position. There's a reason he hasn't hired anybody yet. There's a reason Stern's name continues to come up every year. That seems to have been the guy he's wanted all along. Um, if he can't get him, I don't know what he pivots to. To be honest, I don't know if there's another guy out there that he really has his eye on. Um, it, to me, it's almost Stearns or bust for Steve, and it would kind of suck if Stearns decides to do something else or just doesn't want to be here for whatever the reason. Um, I don't know. That's why I kind of hate to like feel like it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to be here because I know weird things always happen in Metsland. Um, yeah, I really don't know the answer to that. I don't know who the backup plan would be. Does he just continue to stick with Epler in hopes that somebody pops up? But I did see a funny comment way back earlier that said it was a prediction, said Brian Cashman will get fired and get hired as the Mets president of baseball operations. I don't know if that was a troll comment. I kind of feel like it was, but yeah, I would not be on board with that. I think Yankee fans are pretty fed up with Cashman, and I think we probably would be as well. Although the argument I could see when George was still in charge and he could spend whatever he wanted, he wasn't. I mean, the Yankees were doing Yankee things, and they make the playoffs every freaking year. I mean, this year they
Nelson,
might.
don't do this. Don't do
I'm just,
this.
I have to play devil's
Don't
advocate.
do
I have to do it.
this.
It's 2 a.m. We got to talk about something. Let's art. I could make the argument that you give Cashman Cohen's checkbook, and he might be able to make some things happen. He did it under Steinbrenner. You never know. I don't know. I'm just trying to talk myself into it. I don't know who else. I'm trying to think of other options. There aren't really good ones. The Yankees are probably not. He's got a job with the Yankees for life. Let's be honest. Hal Steinbrenner is not going to fire him. He just won't.
No, listen, I hear what you're saying, but I mean, when we're talking about at 2 a.m., what a potential other option of president of baseball operations would be if David Stearns doesn't come on board. All right, we can talk about Brian Cashman and the whole other good lots, but listen, man, I mean, Brian Cashman has his own dumpster fire to deal with in the Bronx right now. We're not talking Brian Cashman, no matter what it is pertaining to the Mets. So, listen,
Got
man, I
to
don't.
fill time here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know what the answer to that would be. I don't think Theo Epstein is the right answer to that, to be honest with you. Um, I think there's a reason why a reporter like, as big as John Heyman would report something about David Stearns to the Mets as early as he did. I think that it is pretty much set in stone beyond our knowledge that David Stearns will be the next Pobo of the Mets, but nothing is ingrained, in concrete, so to speak,
Well, if you check out my
with that.
YouTube channel, there's a behind the scenes video of Billy Epler, and there's some incriminating evidence that maybe Billy's not running the show right now.
Oh, I mean, if you're talking about Billy Epler running the show, shout out, go tune in to Amish Country Mets fan, go tune into Nelson's YouTube. I haven't thought that Billy Epler is running the show right now. I don't know who is running the show, and it's definitely not Steve Cohen, but there's somebody in the Mets front office that's running the show, and it's not Sandy Alderson. So I am at a loss for words, but we'll see what happens, man. It's an interesting conversation. It's a good topic of conversation. I don't have any other prospects of Pobos that would probably make or round out the candidacy list for the New York Mets come the 2023 offseason.
Somebody
So
from
we'll see.
Tampa, man. Just find somebody in Tampa's organization.
Literally, honestly, just take one of them. Just pay them higher salary and just take some of them. But yeah, man, I mean, the Mets front office, it needs to get some structure. That is 100% a definite. It's just something that needs to happen. The Mets front office has seemed to not have much structure this season. I don't know how much of the front office is talking with the players right now in terms of their future plans. I don't know how many questions Billy Epler can really, I guess, answer the players if they want to go talk to the front office about what the future plans are. I don't know if Billy Epler can really answer all those questions about what is there for the future, but listen, the Mets front office, they'll figure it out. I think David Stearns is going to be here, to be honest with you. I don't think that the reports would be breaking as early as they would. The Brewers are an organization who have been in flux. They've been playoff contenders for the last, many years, but they've never really cracked or really amounted to anything in the playoffs just because of their limited capital abilities. So if you take David Stearns into the Mets organization, you get a whole different ball game. And listen, David Stearns is pretty much, a mastermind of trades. He's traded for Christian Yelich and he's traded for Willie Adames. So you're talking about the conversation of the Mets trading for a starter this coming off season. Who knows? Maybe our boy David Stearns can make a splash coming into the position and trading for a starting pitcher right off the bat. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't really have any answers in terms of if David Stearns does not come on board. We'll see what happens with that. I don't think Billy Epler is the sole mastermind of this trade deadline right now. I think that there's going to be a lot of reports and a lot of stories that we see out of the Mets. What whoever it comes from, that we'll see um, from the clubhouse perspective, from the front office perspective, in terms of who's really making these decisions. You factor in Epler and then also the analytical department. There's a lot of variables to go along with this 2023 Mets team that is just like really you can't really speak on objectively. We are all just outsiders looking to get an in on what the Mets are doing right now as a process. So we'll see what happens.
Someone
I
asked
think
if the Mets
Go
are
ahead.
entertaining offers for Pete. I don't think so. I think Pete's here to stay for now, for sure. Um, his bat's finally starting to come around again, so that's good news. Um, yeah, I don't think they're moving Pete. As much as I'd love for them to, I don't think they're moving McNeil. Um, yeah, the names that you've heard so far are pretty much going to be the ones. Fam, maybe Rayleigh, but I doubt it. Maybe Ottavino. And then Verlander. Those are, or Narvaez, I guess. Is that I've seen his name float around a little bit, so maybe him, but it's pretty much it. Those are the guys that are left. Of all of those, I'd say Fam is the definite. The other ones are pretty unlikely. Although there's a lot of smoke there with JB, so who knows? But yeah, Fam's the guy I'm expecting to go. Everybody else, I don't know. We'll see. Wait and see what happens. I don't know how much longer we want to go with this. I know we got some loyal people that have been sticking around here, but you make the call how long we want to keep this going.
Yeah, well, I think I can last until 2:30, so we'll go around there and then we'll call it quits. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. I think these comments are definitely great conversation points to go off of. I think I'll call it a night at 2:30. We'll see where it goes from there, but I want to get to this comment real quick here from Timothy Frith. He says, "Will the Mets retain Epler, fire Showalter, hire Stearns as president of baseball operations, and name Craig Counsell as manager?" Every single point that he just brought up in that one singular comment, shout out you, Timothy, is what I would say the Mets' A plan is. That is what I would say the Mets' A plan is. You're gonna retain Epler because he has a strong relationship with David Stearns. Buck Showalter is not going to be here to, he's not going to be here to stay because he's not David Stearns' guy. Certainly not. So Buck Showalter's out the question. You're gonna hire Stearns, obviously, because that's what the smoke and the rumors for the last couple months have already been. And in my humble opinion, they wouldn't have not been those reports wouldn't have been as strong as they were if that sort of smoke wasn't already, getting fired up that way. I think David Stearns is pretty much the lock, from what I've heard, to be the next Mets Pobo. And then it's not a far cry or a far assumption to think that David Stearns is not bringing in Craig Counsell as his manager come 2024. So Timothy Frith, spot on comment. That is the Mets A plan for me as a fan. I think that's exactly what they're gonna do. So shout out that comment. I think that's spot on. Let's see here. We got a couple other comments. Oh, geez, we got a couple of Bernie Madoff comments here.
You
Goodness.
can tell it's getting late.
Yeah, you can tell it's getting late on the stream when you get Bernie Madoff comments in here. Dwight Gooden Forever says, you said, are they seriously considering Pete offers? I'd like to give my thoughts on the Pete Alonso, I guess, fiasco. I think Pete's here to stay. I think they're gonna give him the extension. I just Pete's sample size of success compared to what we've seen this season from him, even given the power numbers this season, is just something that you cannot pass up on. Obviously, Pete's 28 now, anyways. He's probably due for maybe an 8-year extension max. I don't think he signs up for anything less than 8 years. But if you can get him on like a 6-year deal like Freddie Freeman did, I'd be way more comfortable with giving him 6 years rather than the 8 years. That's just me personally speaking. Um, so we'll see what happens with that. I think that Pete Alonso has done enough on I say unfortunately because I love Pete Alonso and I really want him to get his bag, but in terms of being a Mets fan and the payroll perspective in general, I think Pete Alonso's done enough to like potentially convince the front office to give him a like world class first baseman deal, trumping Freddie Freeman's. Obviously, he has not had enough production as Freddie Freeman to deserve that. But we all know, like in terms of like the negotiation aspect of things, we all know that Pete Alonso and his agents probably going to be gunning for a top level first baseman deal. Whether or not he breaks Freddie Freeman's, I think Freddie Freeman's making 28 million dollars a year, and Paul Goldschmidt's making 26 or 27. I made a podcast episode on my channel on that with the exact numbers. Don't quote me on it, but I don't know. I think maybe we might see Pete Alonso at like 28, 29. We'll see if the Mets use this year as a negotiation tactic to sort of get a couple of $1 million less AAV on his contract. But that extension is going to be something to keep an eye out on. So, good
I want to
question.
tackle.
Do I get in forever?
I want to tackle a couple comments. One is very important, but first I'll get to the less important one, which is whether Alonso and McNeil even want to stay long term. Pete, I truly do believe wants to be a Met long term. McNeil's already signed to an extension. If it were, I already stated I'd love to get rid of him if I can, but I think we're stuck with him for at least the rest of this year. Hopefully, maybe we can swing a deal in the offseason and ship him off to I don't care where because I don't like him. Um, I saw what was the other comment? The important one. Oh, this is the important comment. I'm disappointed we haven't seen Kate Upton at one City Field game yet. On the shows, Kate was always at a Verlander game. What I will say is that's not true. You must have missed it somehow. She's been to at least one, maybe two, because I saw her post pictures with Miss Alex Cohen all over Instagram, and they were hanging out at City together. So I know she's been to at least one. So yeah, that's important. I do love me some Kate Upton, but wish we were seeing her more. If Verlander sticks around, I'd love to see her at more games.
No, yeah, I mean, for sure. I think I've seen Kate Upton, like I'm not at City Field regularly, but I've seen Kate Upton on the socials for sure at City Field. So we'll see. Honestly, I mean, I don't know how much of Kate how persuasion that Kate Upton has in terms of Justin Verlander's no trade clause, but that's certainly a topic of discussion as well for that
You
sort of
would think,
trade. So
given
we'll
her
see.
career, she'd like to stick around in New York or go to LA. But then again,
Or
she
LA,
was in Houston for a while, and they were in Detroit for a while. So those aren't necessarily
potentially.
big cities as far as like modeling and whatnot. But who
Potentially,
knows?
yeah. It really is up in question, and I think we got 15 minutes or so here left until we got to call it a night here personally. Um, I want to open this up to the comments section and anybody who's still crazy enough to be listening to us right now. If you're listening to this live stream, shout out you. Obviously, you all know that we are not talking Mets with Rob. We are filling in, and he's been gracious enough for us
Wait,
to fill in for his live. We've been doing him a little service here, and we appreciate him because honestly, what he does is actually spectacular on his channel, and you guys are watching the right guy in terms of Mets content. So shout out Rob. I want to open this up to you all as viewers who are tuning in right now at 2:17 a.m. Drop your comments. We will get to all comments that are posted within reason. We're not going to, touch on some of the ridiculous comments that show up usually at 2:17 a.m. But Mets related comments, you know, drop them in the comments. We'll get to them. We'll
you don't
speak on
want
them
more Kate Upton
individually.
question?
No more Kate Upton questions. But drop your comments related to the Mets and the trade deadline. We'll get to them individually. We'll answer them. We've already given our piece on the prospects, the trades. We haven't, there's no breaking news so far as of 2:18 a.m. so far. So drop your comments if you're listening. If you have not subscribed to Nelson and I's YouTube page, we are on the Roundtable podcast that airs every Monday night at 8 p.m. with Rob, Hayden, and then Nelson and I. I am at CPNY Sports. Nelson is at Amish Country Mets fan. I'm going to post a little comment here. Hey, all, for you all to see my channel. If you want to subscribe, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Definitely appreciate that if you enjoy. Nelson, if you can do the same, go ahead and drop your comment in there. Comment all your thoughts. I want to get to you guys' individual comments. I want to shout you guys out real quick on the live stream, and talk about what you guys want to talk about as it relates to the Mets directly in the trade deadline and what we've seen, whether it's what we've seen already or what's to come. But drop your comments. If not, then Nelson and I will keep ranting on here for the next 12
I
or
saw
13 or
Carlton
so
say
minutes.
something about I saw Carlton say something about Luis Carrasco rumors. To the Reds. I'll be honest, I don't know who that is. So I'm not sure. I would have to Google or something. But yeah, I haven't seen anything on that. Um, if it's not with the Mets, I've kind of haven't been too in tune on what's going on. Um, what else? Do we have any new comments? Fernando Rodriguez, thanks for the trade stream. Questions of the money spent this year by the Mets. Who would you say is to blame for the situation the Mets are in? The GM or the coach? What's your call on that?
Just to answer the Luis Carrasco, I think he's a prospect for the Athletics, is what they're talking about. I don't really know too much about him. I guess there's some trade rumors about him going to the Reds. I'm not quite sure. Looked like he was a little bit more closer to MLB ready, but if they're mentioning Carlos Carrasco instead, then yeah, Carlos Carrasco is not going to draw any attention from the MLB, trade deadline. He's not really going to be a player that intrigues many teams, so don't expect him to get moved. I've not been high on Carlos Carrasco all season long. He's just a guy who has served his time in the MLB. He's an older guy. It's probably closer to retirement for him. As much as it pains me to say, because he's a good guy, but it's just not. We're not going to get anything in return out of Carlos Carrasco. In terms of the comment that you said, um, the money spent this year by the Mets, who would you say is to blame for the situation the Mets are in? The GM or the coaches? I think it's the players. Really, it's the players. I don't think there's any drastic changes from the coaching perspective. The GM who the GM is, minus outside of a couple of dud deals last year, Naquin and Darren Ruff deals to be exact. I don't think that he did anything wrong this offseason per se. I was a little bit underwhelmed in terms of the offensive talent that the Mets got in the 2020, I guess, 2 offseason, only being Tommy Pham. There wasn't it was kind of slim pickings, I guess you could say, but I don't know with the emphasis that the starting rotation needed in the offseason that Billy Epler's to blame for that. So I'm gonna put it on the players. Max Scherzer didn't perform up to expectations. We lost Jose Quintana for a while there, and unfortunate
The Edwin
circumstance due to
Diaz
injury.
loss is big.
Edwin Diaz to start off the season is obviously a huge loss. Guys like, Lindor, who started off cold, picked up some steam thereafter. Alonso, who's cold now. McNeil not performing to what we expected McNeil to come off of from, the batting championship or the batting title. Justin Verlander, who started off not so great off of his injury. I think it's on the players, really. I don't think you can blame the
Mhm.
coaches. I don't think you can blame really the front office for the Mets' failures. I think they did what they needed to do. And it would have been a different story if the Mets were winners and they just failed the deadline, but the players did not show up. And Nelson, you can fully argue that point, but really for me, it's the players, man.
No, I don't have an argument at all. Like I mean, I think there's a little bit of blame to go around, but it's mostly the players. I'd put some of it on Buck for sure. He's made very questionable decisions this year. A little bit on Billy, but he would probably be, if I had to rank them, I'd say players one, Buck two, Billy three. As far as the Carrasco, I guess they were talking about Carlos Carrasco, and in that case, I don't know why the Reds would want Carlos Carrasco. He hasn't been very good. If you guys are willing to give up anything for him, I'd gladly pan them over. um, I mean, if you're that desperate for pitching, I guess, but I don't see I don't see why Carlos Carrasco would interest the Reds at all. To be honest, I did say, see what percent does JV get traded to LA before the deadline? If I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say about 25. I don't know about you, Chris.
I'm saying even less than that, but
Less. Okay. Uh, our guy Kenny Fry. Any chance they ship Nito or Narvaez? Nito probably not, just because I don't think anybody has any interest in Nito. Narvaez is a possibility. Nito could slide in and be the backup catcher. Um, and his bat does, I think, intrigue some people or some teams. Um, thought we had a 1 year window saying Verlander. Hector thinks Verlander gets traded. Carlton, thank you for taking my comments anytime, buddy. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to read. Nothing.
that comment
Um,
was intriguing for me. If we can go back to that one, it was
which one?
I thought we had a one. What was it? I thought we had a
1 year
one-year
window in 22 and didn't go for it. I mean,
and didn't go
I
for
don't
it.
think it's a 1 year window. I could see the argument that we should have went harder for it at the deadline for sure, though.
And I
Not
think that's what Rob is also in tune with is that the Mets should have went
yeah.
harder for the Mets 2022 team. And I've agreed with him, on countless occasions with that. But at the end of the day, the trade pool in 2022 was what it was. Did Epler misfire on 2 trades last season, 2022? 100%. But does, Vasquez, the catcher that went to the Astros, make the Mets a World Series contender at that point? No, he doesn't. Does anybody who got traded in that MLB, in that trade deadline in 2022 make the Mets contenders last season? To me, no, they do not. So, yeah, in hindsight, I can say this all I want. I agree with that. This is a different feeling when Mets have when that trade deadline is happening in 2022. I'm saying this in hindsight is that most of the players in 2022 were not going to make the Mets probably World Series contenders in 2022, but a different feeling, when you're the GM or whatever. It was about the mindset. I feel like that is the real point, is about the mindset in 2022, was really about half-assing that trade deadline with Naquin, Ruff, and whatever else in Vogelback that they got back. So
What I
that was a good comment. I appreciate that
yeah,
comment.
what I'll say to that too is, let's be honest. If you go back and look at it, a lot of teams had no interest in our prospects. We didn't have enough prospects. We didn't have anybody that people really wanted, so it was hard to swing any bigger deals. And we were in a position where we didn't want to give up those top tier guys that people were asking for. They were asking for Alvarez and Beatty, and we didn't really want to give those guys up. And I don't blame Epler necessarily for that. So it was just a tough spot to be in. You definitely could argue we should have gone for it harder, but I don't know. It's all hindsight at this point for sure. Um, I thought I saw. Oh, Carlton said he's on record on the Red site. He'd do a Steve Cohen for Ellie trade straight up. I don't know that I'd do that. As much as I love Ellie, I like our owner, and I want an owner that's going to spend money and be willing to do what it takes to make us a winner. Which we were stuck with the Wilpons forever, and we didn't have that. Um, Andre had said this team got old at the same time, which contributed to major problems. Cup chemistry way off. Still think McNeil and Lindor don't get along. Still waiting for his car. Yeah, I saw a couple comments about the car. Don't get me started on that thing. I think that's a joke. Um, McNeil doesn't even deserve a car at this point. Um, and
But the
again,
Mets, but the Mets getting old in the roster spot is something that they're actively trying to fix this deadline,
yep,
and I think that is going to be a thing that is fixed come 2024. So that first half of the comment is very valid, and I'm really appreciative of what the Mets are trying to do here in the deadline and getting younger. So that is valid.
yeah, and I think you could argue the rule changes have a little bit to play in it too. I know that's a weak excuse and people don't like it, but we've seen players complain about it, not just on the Mets, on other teams as well. The pitch clock does affect some of these guys on the pitching and the hitting side. Um, let's face it, baseball players are guys, they're routine oriented. Everything's about a routine and sticking to a routine. This year has changed that for a lot of guys. And if you notice, a common theme with a lot of the teams that are doing well is they are very young. And if you think about it, their players are used to the pitch clock because they've been minor league players for a while. The minor leagues have had the pitch clock, so they're used to that. So that you could kind of see that how some of the older teams are struggling a bit, and some of the younger teams are really thriving because they're not having to adjust on the fly to these new rules. A lot of these rules have been in place in the minors, and their guys are used to playing with those rules. So you could argue that that plays a factor in what's been going on this year for sure. I'm not going to make that like a number one thing. I think that's a secondary thing for sure. I don't think it affects every guy the same either. So I hopefully next year with some adjustments, guys will be better. But we've seen it even the main guy I can think of that I think of not on the Mets that it really Sandy Alcantara last year was a phenomenal pitcher. He is nothing, nowhere near what he was. And he's made public comments about how the pitch clock is screwed with him, and he hasn't been able to adjust. So it's just an interesting thing to think about.
No, no, and I completely agree. All valid points in that Sandy Alcantara just comparison is just like, yeah, that is a prime example. I completely agree with that because I feel like a lot of people are not talking about that, Sandy's season so far this year coming off of I think he won the Cy Young last year, right? So it is really unparalleled to sort of the transition of this success and the youth movement, of these teams coming up. So Mets are doing right by not only the team but the rules that are in effect too. So I see a couple comments here. One says, I'm saying Verlander gets traded. And then the other one saying, I'm saying, Kenny Fry is saying, I think Verlander stays. So Mets fans are split, it seems, in terms of their thinking of Verlander staying or going. Um, we don't know. Anything can happen. In my personal and humble opinion, I think Verlander is on the roster come 6 p.m. 6:01, I should say, because trades can still go on if they're being negotiated at 6 o'clock come tomorrow. I think come 6:01, Verlander is a part of the Mets, but I could be wrong, and we will see come tomorrow. So, like I said, either way, the Mets, it's a win-win for the Mets. Couple other comments to catch up on here before we end this. Let's see here. Everyone knew DeGrom wasn't coming back. Yeah, DeGrom was not going to come back to the Mets. We were talking about Justin Verlander. Can't win a championship in any sport without strong young talent, which is why you can't build a championship team with just free agents. Completely agree. And guess what? The Mets are ahead of the curve already with this trade deadline, which is why I respect the moves that they're making. Good points, Andre. Appreciate your comments all night. Great points. Carlton says, didn't someone from the Mets say they were wanting to model after the Dodgers? Yep, Steve Cohen, the owner, did say that. Bringing up more talent and then spending on the right splash players. That would be the route. Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen.
Yeah,
They've
that's what
already
we're
been
trying to.
growing the farm system. Yeah, it's like this trade deadline is exactly feeding into what Steve Cohen said when he first acquired the Mets and first purchased the Mets. So he's just sticking by his word. And it's just the timeline of what he said, that 3 to 5 years, that might be a little bit skewed to the Mets fans. But what he said originally and what he wanted to accomplish as the Mets owner, he's right on par with doing, in my opinion. So see DeGrom and Max again, hopefully next season on the Rangers roster. That I mean, that could be
I,
electric. We'll see.
I
DeGrom
think
situation's in
that was
flux.
all next year, though. I mean, I maybe he'd come back the end of the season, but it's doubtful.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. It is doubtful. But yeah, I think that's all the comments that we're gonna get to tonight. I did speak with Rob. We are closing out the show. Rob did message me here just a little bit ago. He wants you all, the viewers, to know that he will be back. And this stream that we are on right now will be back live starting at 9 a.m. tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you are tuning in to this stream at 9 a.m. Rob will be back. Your usual host will be back. Maybe Nelson and I will be, in to fill in when Rob has a couple of things to do tomorrow. That is to be determined. I am definitely willing to do that. We will have to talk with Rob. I appreciate you all that are staying faithful, not only to the stream, but to the Mets in general, and listening to us dweebs up here talking about the Mets deadline moves at 2:36 a.m. We appreciate you all 100%. Thank you all for tuning in. My handle's at CPNY Sports. Make sure you subscribe to me. And then Nelson is at How Much Country Mets Fan. Make sure you subscribe to him as well. Get him to 200 subs. He's so close to 200 subs. Make sure you go ahead and support his YouTube. He's doing a lot of good content as we speak. So make sure you're tuning into all of our YouTube. And like I said, Rob will be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Just a public service announcement. Nelson, before we end the stream, is there anything that you would like to say to anybody tuning in today?
No, much appreciate everybody that's stuck around this long. I mean, we know Mets fans are crazy, baseball fans are crazy. We're two of them. So glad to be able to help Rob. Glad to be able to. Hopefully, I'll help him out tomorrow too if he needs it. And we'll have our show tomorrow going live at 5 if you guys want to check that out. We'll go 5 up until the deadline, maybe a little longer if something's going on of note. But yeah, we'll be on. Rob will be on throughout the day. It should be interesting. Should be fun to see what goes on. Yeah, if you could be a sub at my channel at Amish Country Mets Fan too, I'd appreciate that. Um, it was good. It's nice to that Rob gives us this opportunity to get ourselves out there and have us on his roundtable podcast on Mondays that we do at 8 o'clock with him and do stuff like this. Like this, he's got a much bigger platform than we do. Obviously, he's been in the game a little longer and he's got a lot of followers. So it's nice to branch out to more people and for him to give us that opportunity is pretty cool. So appreciate that, and appreciate you, Chris, and hope everyone has a great night.
No, definitely. I mean, I 100% echo with that. I appreciate the opportunity to come on here. Rob, Hayden, and us do a good job on the Roundtable podcast. We're great quadruple Mets content creators on there doing a Mets podcast. So it's really nice to extend out to Rob's YouTube channel and his viewers and sort of do this for him as well. And we're definitely appreciative of him as well. And he does a lot of good things. And you'll see him back up in the morning, and hopefully some more trade deadline news comes up in the morning, and especially pertaining to the Mets. But other than that, like Nelson said, we'll be back on with Nelson and I's regular show on streaming to both of our channels at 5 o'clock tomorrow on Tuesdays. And then we usually stream on Fridays as well, 4 p.m. Catch us on the Interstate Mets Report. I am at CPNY Sports. Nelson is at Amish Country Mets Fan. Subscribe to the channel. And with that, as always, remain patient, Mets fans. I know it is a tough time. It is a tough deadline. Selling it when all this, trade deadline news is going down and the Mets being sellers is a topic of discussion. Is always tough, but 2024 is going to be a different season. I fully believe that. You should as well, given who the owner is, and the Mets are doing right by the team moving forward, especially contending for 2024 in terms of selling right now. So it's going to be a little bit of a long way until the offseason, but once that offseason finally hits, I think we'll reap the benefits as fans. So as always, like I said, I'm CPNY Sports, your boy Chris. Let's go Mets. Nelson, I appreciate you coming on. Let's go Mets all day,
Let's go
every day.
Mets. See ya.
See ya.